yourselves. You took my advice and started eating salads. I can see that now. The porta potties are looking much cleaner. I'm not going to stop making this joke all weekend. Welcome back to the Brainery. I'm Anand Harsham with the Unstock.com. We do panels all weekend long, every electric forest, and this year we're doing something a little different. We're going to see how dumb I am and really don't know anything about a very important part of this industry, of the music that we love. The lighting designers have arrived. We have a superstar panel of LDs here to tell you a little bit about what they do, and again, make me look dumb for not understanding what they do. But I'm going to be the punching bag so you can ask the dumb questions later too. So I'm your conduit for dumb questions, and they're gonna come fast and furious. But let's, I'd like to start with an introduction and just go down the line. Tell us who you are and who you've worked with, because you've probably seen their work before and just didn't know it. But now you're going to know it and you're going to appreciate it. So let's start down on the end with you, Corey.
Corey Mattman. I'm out here with a group called The Midnight, playing Observatory tonight. But I also do Explosions in the Sky. I've worked with Wolf Parade. I've done tech work with Tenacious D. So kind of a widespread of different genres.
And you don't have a problem switching from bands to DJs to hybrid acts, anything under the sun. You can go up there and you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about finding something. It's a lot easier when you can connect with it and like kind of draw from it and really feel it a lot more, but you can always kind of create art behind something as long as it's good.
I love it. Justin, you're up next. Tell them who you are, who you've worked with.
Yeah, I'm Justin Casey. Currently, I'm on the road with Bass Nectar. I'm also Mike Gordon Band's LD, and I own a company called Helm Projects, and we design side lighting installations like Halloween, Spirit Lake, stuff like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. How cool is Mike Gordon? Like, scary cool or like fun cool?
He's a super chill dude. Like, he's very he's a one of a kind dude. It's really awesome, but he's super appreciative and he takes care of his crew, and it's a wonderful experience.
That's awesome to hear. Andy, you're up next.
My name is Andy Cass. My main gig is String Cheese Incident.
Woo!
I've done all the jam bands under the sun over the years. I did Bass Nectar for a couple years. I just did Spungle Live a couple weekends ago, Red Rocks.
Hell yeah, that was a show and a half.
It was fucking crazy for me too. And yeah, I love doing this for a living.
I love it. I love to hear that. And finally you, Alex, tell them who you are, what you do.
I'm Alex Gagnon. I am the lighting director for Seven Lions. I've been with them for about a year. I was in the country world for about 4, and I left, and it was awesome. I'm San Diego based now, but I lived in Nashville for about 6 years, and I'm really happy to be here.
I love it. Okay, now here come the dumb questions. Because what you guys do is, like I said, so important, it translates the music into a visual medium for people to really become absorbed in the show, but a lot of people don't know what it is you're doing back behind your desk, how you get there during the afternoon or the morning sometimes and set up extra lights, get them all programmed, have different programs for different songs, and how you have to match the lights to the songs. So here we go. I'm just gonna dive in and sound like an idiot. Can you guys walk me through a day of loading it at a club show, and then we'll talk about a festival show, but when you're on the road in a bus with your own rig, walk me through what you have to do when you are getting to a venue and you are setting up and you are doing your thing. Are you using the venue's equipment? Are you using your own lighting console? Are you all using the same software? Are you using different programs? You just go in there and use whatever's there? I need to know it all from the beginning.
I can start it out. There's definitely a few differences. My job with Mike Gordon is way different than my job with Bass Nectar. In a typical day with Bass Nectar, most of the time the rig is already set up. There's been guys prepping for days and setting it up for days before I get there, and I call it my white glove gig because I stick my flash drive in and I turn all the lights on and they all work, and then I do my thing and I program, and then after the show I leave. But it's a way different experience with Mike Gordon because I'm my own tech on that tour. It's just me. I'm the only lighting guy. Get off the bus at 8 a.m., load in the venue, set up my console, program, do sound check, and then run into dinner, and then after that the show. It's those tours are harder, so you really have to have a passion for that project that you're on, because you wake up at 8 a.m., you're not in bed until 2 or 3 o'clock in the night. You're on a bus, city to city. I've been to so many places that I can just tell you what the back of the venue to the bus looks like. I've been all over the world, and there's so many of those places that I can only tell you this. Waking up on a bus one day and it's snowing, and the next day you're by the ocean and it's 100 degrees out is a surreal feeling. So, a typical day is like that for me. I'm sure Andy has a different experience as well.
Yeah, totally. I don't do much teching of my own shows. I'm not very good at it. I've focused on being an LD for the last decade or so. But the part of the process that you see here is, generally there's 3 parts. There's the design process, which is what are the lights and where are they going to go. Sometimes you get to design the rig. Sometimes in a festival situation, the festival designs the rig. The next step in the process is the programming of the show, meaning are we all Grandame here? We all use the same console, which is the industry standard at Grandame 2. It's about 90% of the industry, so there's a fairly good chance most LDs will be using Grandame 2 once you get to a certain level. So the second step in the process is programming, which is telling the Grandame what we're going to tell different lights based on our client and the way we do it. And the third step in the process is operating the show, which is physically pressing the buttons to the music and being there in person. So once we're here at a festival, the design process is done, the programming process is done, we're coming here and we're preparing to operate. Usually the only real big step in that is that we do a focus, meaning we're telling the lights what direction to point, In my case, every show is built in 3D in advance, so I know to a certain extent where the lights are going to be pointing, but it's not always exact to real life. So I'm coming to real life, and what you guys see, at night when there's no music playing and you see all the lights moving around, what you're seeing is us deciding where we're going to point the lights and making sure it's correct to reality, And then we get down to running the show. Some people's shows are time-coded, meaning the artist is sending us a signal, and the signal is telling the lighting console what time it is in a timeline, and it's firing cues. Other people, like for String Cheese, we're an improvisational band, right? So during the improvisational parts, I'm doing improvisational lighting. During the structured parts of the lighting of the songs, I'm doing structured, pre-planned choices.
Are you the first person outside the band to see the set list?
The set list comes out officially right before the show, right? In String Cheese's case, but I've worked for many jam bands that all do this in different ways. I prepare for every song in the show. My show has about 140 songs pre-programmed out of 300 songs or so total. So I know, based on what's been playing and what the big hits are, what songs are going to come. Really, the set list is kind of inconsequential, because by the time that comes out before the show, I got to be prepared for every song that can get played.
Right. And coming into a band like String Cheese that has a gazillion songs, how important is it for you to know the entire catalog, or go through that? How is that process like? Oh, I've been hired by String Cheese, now I got to listen to every single song, see past shows, and figure that out.
Yeah, this is a little more my personality style, but when I got this gig, I went on to Fantasy Tour, and I looked at the songs that are played the most, and I started at the top, and I worked my way down, So, and I know that when a new song gets played, I can kind of feel whether it's going to be a regular, and if it's going to be a regular, it gets more attention initially, We have a new song right now that they just put out a new video, and, so I knew right away, I'm like, this is going to be the video for this song. They had this video created, so I had to pull it off the internet and get it ready, So, yeah, there are certain songs that are more important. Some songs have 85 cues, are very detailed and have lots of focus. Other songs have 1 cue, and I'm basically starting the look and then just punting from there and keeping it along. So, it matters what how complex the song is for me.
And she's played one fucking song on Thursday.
Yeah, I know.
So
I
that
didn't
was
know-
just you freeballing it, right?
I didn't know anything about that until right before the show. I was really excited. For me, that's great, man. I mean, that's what jam bands are about. Like, some nights it's amazing, you know, and some nights it's not. And that dynamic is what keeps you coming back. You know, if every show, string cheese show, let's say, was time-coded and it was perfect, there's not that dynamic, you know? I mean, Trey in Bittersweet Motel talks about, you know, sometimes the shows that suck are important because they give you dynamic against the shows that are great. You know, if there's magic in the show, it happens sometimes. Thursday, it was it. It all came together, it was great, you know what I mean? It didn't have to be that way, but it came out great, you know? I love that. I thought it was really interesting and fun to do stuff like that.
That's killer. Alex, I wonder, coming from the country world to the heavy bass, up-tempo bass world of Seven Lions, what was your learning curve, right? What did you have to adapt to from something like working with Carrie Underwood, which I assume was pretty like, the show in Detroit's going to be the same as the show in Cleveland.
Right.
Everything's completely mapped out and everything is, you know, pitch perfect.
Right, actually Carrie Underwood was not time-coded, and my 2 years with Toby Keith also wasn't. Time code really limits an artist to be creative mid-set when he's really feeling something. I can appreciate in time code how video, lasers, lighting all meets these beautiful dynamic points, and it's so much programming for EDM. It's not structured like typical country where it's your intro, your verse one, your chorus one. So it's much more heavier programming. For Seven Lions, our tours are typically fully time coded, which takes a lot of time between video, lasers, and lights. But for the festival season we've been on, we really like him to just be able to do what he feels like. So throw in new songs mid-set. Like our festivals, we don't get set lists.
Wow.
Ever.
Okay. Is it pretty modular where it's sort of broken up into chunks and they can replace parts here and there? Or is it really just individual song by song by song?
It depends on what he wants to do.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes he'll be more structured. Sometimes he's like, you know what, I'm going to throw in some trance and weird people out. You know, he really he plays with it, and that's great because I love playing with it too. I love the time code aspect, but for festivals, it's a lot more fun. The rigs are so unique, so different every festival, that it's a lot more fun for me to play an instrument with him and do that visually.
I want to get back to what the festivals are sending you, but first we were having a conversation before we started, and I didn't even think that you had to be so conscious of what BPM every song is in Jeff's library. And that must have been a lot different jumping over from country music, but like learning to get in and figure out like, oh god, here we go, we're going to 152. Okay, now we're dropping back to 108.
Well, I have a button on my console where I can just tap it and it will meet his BPM. So, like our time-coded show, I get kind of bored and antsy. So instead, I'll just sit there and I'll tap my BPM with him, so I have something to do. The reason why I know every BPM to our song is because we have TC Supply.
Yeah.
So I can literally see his BPM, and that's kind of actually how I know where he's going in the set.
Right.
Like where he's trying to transition or down, you know, just dynamically. I kind of just watch him, and we just, like me and my VJ, we just feel his vibe. Like, where's he gonna go? What's he gonna do?
And like in a jam band, when the guitarist and the bass player are feeling it and getting into a groove, locking in, you're in the same sort of relationship with your DJ, with your artist, with your singer.
Oh yeah, I get super pumped. I'm like, here we go, we're going in. Yeah, we just play, and it's really fun.
That telepathy is something that I didn't even consider, but it's got to be.
It's a huge connection with your artist, understanding what they want the audience to see, what he wants to feel on stage, and what message you're trying to get across. We're an extremely cinematic show, so we like negative space. We like lighting to have moments, lasers to have moments, video to have moments. We like to create a full story for the audience to like really give them that pretty melodic feeling, and then get really hard and nightmarish, and then bring dreams. It's a fully rounded show.
I love it. I love it. So getting back to what the festivals are sending you, Corey, when you get booked for Electric Forest, you know your artist is going to be there. What is the information that you are getting from the festival itself? Are they sending you a map of what the lights are going to be? Are they sending you actual data and maybe like a three-dimensional image of what you're going to be feeding into your software. How does that work? How does that communication work?
So generally coming in, you do advancing with the festival, and kind of they'll create a patch and a plot. So a patch is going to be all your different fixtures, the operating modes that they're in, the actual local address of the fixture, because they all sit into universes of channels, and you can only fit so many fixtures into each universe. So they all have to be very specifically ID'd. So you get basically a sheet with all of that. Then you start seeing into like paperwork and more like technical diagrams, overhead, side views, fronts that show the rigging points of the lights, how they're rigged, whether they're going to be on the front of the truss or the back of the truss or inside the truss. And from there, you can either go in and create your own 3D files so that you can program and see everything before you actually get to the festival.
And as Andy was saying, sometimes it doesn't exactly match up to reality.
Exactly. Like sometimes the trussing might be a different manufacturer than they were thinking, so the ladders that cross the truss will make a fixture have to move over 6 inches or have to be rigged differently.
Yeah.
And not everything not everything's always going to be rigged 100% perfectly. So like Andy was saying, you're going to have little tweaks to every fixture. So like you're going to have to go in and build off of that, and that's when you come in and you use your program time. So you can kind of set everything up from the information that you get beforehand so that you're not having to go through all that when you get on site. You can focus more on making sure that your colors are matching between different fixtures because they have different color temperatures, or like making sure that your positions are actually matching up and sitting straight so that you don't have like one light sitting out here when all of them are like focused into one spot. You can kind of go through and see all those points and kind of like think about it and take it into account.
Right. Justin, I'm going to ask the tough questions. Who are bigger dicks, LDs or sound guys or VJs?
Tough one.
The merch guy. He's usually the angriest because he gets shit on all day long. It's terrible to see some of the people that ask him questions at the merch table is hilarious. Just on my off time, I love to go up there and watch and just go, man, I'm so sorry. So sorry. It's all about the team. There's different departments. We all try to work together as we can. It's tough. So it's a lot of moving parts. You're talking about semis worth of gear, audio, lighting, video. Those guys have to be at their prime. You definitely have meet some people with some bad attitudes or who are having a rough day. So,
Sure.
that happens. We all can be divas as well. My favorite department is video because the shortest point between 2 points is a video cable. They'll literally run it across my lighting desk if they can get to it in a shorter run. It's amazing.
But you do have to work with the VJs closely because you are also creating a visual scene and playing with the venue. That's your canvas. But you are at competing ends in the fact that your light will distract from their light.
Yeah, it's a give and take thing with video. For me, I watch, the Bass Nectar show is very video heavy, so I pay attention to that. I try to color match. I try to make the vibe with the video as well. And then we have parts where it's just video or just lights or just lasers. I did do my first lights and lasers only show with Bass Nectar recently.
Was that at Pepsi Coliseum?
No, it was at Denver Coliseum.
Denver Coliseum, that's right.
Yeah, it was our dark party. So
right.
we just, we had to move venues, and it was great. It was such a cool experience that you didn't have the video. People could dance with each other. Right. There was still lasers, so you still had some visuals to an extent. But it was a super cool concept of what we had going on. Made a good situation out of a bad one. But the video guys jumped in. Those dudes helped us load out. It was it takes a team. Like you have to work with these guys, and you have to live with them, and you want to make sure that everyone is doing the top level of work they can be doing.
Now that lasers have moved into the scene so much more, especially in the electronic music world, how difficult is that? Because that is yet another element, and those lasers can take your lights out.
Oh yeah,
Fuck
I mean,
projectors.
I have an issue with lasers because I love them so much. And once you put them in, man, it's so hard to take them out because you're like, oh, I want it again. Like, just another one. Like, it's amazing. I mean, they're so bright now. It's incredible how amazing. And we do audience scanning lasers, so that really adds like a three-dimensional depth to the show, where it's not just lasers overhead, it's like coming right at you. And it really rocks, But there's a kind of a competition there of making sure that the lasers look great when they're on, and making sure the lighting looks great when it's just on, and then trying to compete back and forth.
Using them in place and not just like covering the place in lasers the whole show.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have feels. There's definitely, EDM is way different. I worked with Mo, the jam band, and we did lasers on a few shows, and it was way different than it was with Bass Nectar, where we want that visual stimulation all the time. We just want it to be immersive, and the lasers provide that for us.
Andy, do you have any horror stories of walking into a venue not having the right trussing, not having the right equipment? I mean, I gotta imagine.
Oh, yeah.
You have a
career's
scroll
worth
of them. Yeah.
The thing with this job is that we do a lot of planning on our end, but one person can only control so much. I mean, I'm a control freak, I'll admit it. My show, I run everything. So lasers, video, lighting, all of this is integrated into my console. I'm looking to make cohesiveness out of a bunch of different departments, right? In EDM, generally, there's a laser operator and a video operator and a lighting operator and maybe even a show producer that's kind of telling them who to take turns. And at String Cheese, I want you to not be able to tell that distinction and to look more cohesive. The point of all that is that we bring as much as we can with us, and my goal always was that the more I can have the same rig every night, the more the show file can make a constant progression forward. I learned a lot from Kuroda and take a lot of inspiration from Kuroda, and I think one of the things that made him so good was that he had the same rig every night for years, and that allows the show file to get better and better and better every day. When you're working in EDM and you're relying on the venue to provide the rig, you're always just dealing with whatever's given, and so to really move forward and make something that is yours and looks like your band, you have to bring your stuff. So yeah, I have a career's worth of stories of the venue not providing what they should provide, but for the most part, you try and bring the things that you have to have, and then you compromise. My show file is built around the idea that, like, for example, my show file has 100 spot fixtures in it, and 100 beam fixtures, and 100 LEDs in it, right? So that I can go into any one place, and as long as they don't have more than that, I can take that information from those fixtures and put it onto the house fixtures, right? That's something that we all kind of do. We call that cloning, which is take we're out on our touring rig, and you have your light rig, and you take the information that would go to this light, and you're going to take that information, now put it at this light at a festival, right?
That's a lot. It's a lot. I have learned a lot during this panel. If there are any people out there who have any questions for these super, super talented people, I cannot answer them, but they can. So we're going to have Joanne over there is going to bring a mic around. We got a couple of questions. Please pick their brains, because this is stuff that I don't know, and I'm so glad to be learning all of this.
Hey, so for someone who's starting to get into lighting design, what do you recommend they pick up? Like, what kind of software to use? Where do you begin?
Brainery is the way to go. I got told when I first got into this industry that if you learn this console, you will always have a job, and so far it's proven to be true. The thing about the internet is, and I can't imagine how some of these guys 15, 20 years ago learned how to run lights, because now you can watch YouTube videos on how to do it. There's tutorials, there's forums, there's WhatsApp groups. I'm in several WhatsApp groups with other MA programmers, and they all ask questions, and it's amazing, you know. Network. Make sure you network with as many people as you can, and you know, learn the software. That's the first step if you want to be a designer. You know, that I would recommend.
What's that barrier to entry? You know, the cost of the basic console, the cost of the software. How many days, weeks, months are we talking to?
I think
to get into it?
The great equalizer in our industry, in my opinion, was when Grand MA put their software out for free and their 3D visualizer out for free. This is why they have 90% of the market share. Because every other software and console out there, you have to learn, you have to buy something. And I essentially downloaded these 2 pieces of software and holed myself up in my room for 2 years and came out and was an LD. You know, I mean, before this existed, to show that you could do a huge concert, you would have to have a huge concert to show that you could do it, right? Now you can learn how to do a huge concert without it being there, right? So that is what there's a lot of LDs that do smaller bands than me that are brilliant LDs. And the reason that I think that they're brilliant is because they can take a small number of lights and make it look good. It's not just about the scale. You know, so it can be done on a small level, and there can be lots of learning out there before you have to jump all the way in. You know, you don't have to own the consoles that we run. Cost $60,000 retail. You don't need to do any of that. You know, you can work at home and really hone your skill set before you ever get in front of people.
Alex, how many days, weeks, months was it before you went from getting the software, learning the software, to performing at a show?
So I actually started at a club when I was 18. So this is all I've ever known. I've toured for almost 10 years. I started at a club, and a bunch of the LDs were old dudes who were like, we're gonna go get drunk, run lights. And I was like, what? Whoa, okay. And my show was so bad. It was so embarrassing. I went to the bathroom and I was like, I'm gonna give myself 15 seconds to freak out and cry right now. And then I went in on my off time, didn't get paid, and I sat at that Evo Light console for days and hours learning it through and throughout. I also had great mentors who knew how to train and teach me, and I picked that. And just working in that club, it led me to meet so many artists who were like, this girl is young, fresh, she loves to work, and we like her style. So I got picked up pretty fast by Modest Yahoo, and I was just turned 21 when he was like, you're gonna be my designer, programmer, everything. And we had a great bond. Worked with him for 2.5 years. But I took all the tools that I knew, and I didn't have MA. I didn't have these resources. I was using whatever was around me, nightclubs, learning really strange Chinese software, and it made me a better programmer. I learned different styles and my version of how I like to program and what makes sense for me. And then, you know, time goes on and you get better, people pick you up, and then, you know, Carrie Underwood was like really the first real Grand MA arena show I had ever done, and learning that from coming from like the Avo or Kansas world was challenging and intimidating because I was against the greatest and I was really young on my first arena tour. But like I said, you know, you have those mentors. You know, you can go work for design firms and shadow people like Justin. You know, like you can shadow them, and then, you know, you start picking up pace, and then you kind of pave your own way. But, you know, I started really small. I did Sprinter van tours, you know. It takes time, like be patient, find the right people that you trust and you mesh really well to learn your own style. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We had one more question up here.
Yeah, it's mostly for Andy, I guess, for any of you. You've been talking largely about festival situations, but I recently saw Cheese at the Orpheum, a really small, intimate thing. And It was similar but not the same. I mean, how much goes into when you're really doing like those intimate clubs type of stuff with a big band like that?
Yeah, I mean, I said this a little bit earlier, but we really make our paychecks on the small shows, not the big ones, you know? And this is true in the audio department too. It's hard to take a very complex process and dumb it down to less fixtures than to go the other direction, for me at least. But I have a few things that I need in my show file for it to run properly. Essentially, I need a spot fixture, a beam fixture, an LED, and a way to light the band, right? So I have a document that explains to a venue that says, for us to come here and do our show, you have to fulfill these necessary qualifications. If you can't, we'll bring what we need to do it, you know? But small shows, especially brightness-wise, this is what I struggle with the most. I can take a very bright light and put it in a little teeny club, it's just gonna blow your face off, and it's not gonna look good, you know? So we need to get fixtures that are relative to the size venue that we're at, you know? Over the years, I've learned how to make my show file scalable. This was especially important when I worked for Bass Nectar. I worked for Bass Nectar in a lot of the early years, and we would go from huge mega festivals to really small rooms back to back, you know? And I realized I made the show too complicated at first, and then I simplified it because the scalability wasn't there, you know? So that's a big thing for us. I mean, I think it's really important to understand that if you're a young LD and you're working at small shows, you can hone your craft at small shows. It doesn't have to be big, you know? There can be nuance, and there can be texture, and there can be sexiness. It doesn't have to be flash and trashy just because it's small, you know?
That is brilliant advice. We got learned. We got learned by some of the best in the business. Corey Mattinen, Justin Casey, Andy Cass, Alex Gagnon. Give them a huge round of applause. Next time you go see a show, pay attention to those lights and thank them at the end of the night. And thank you for being here. We got one more panel at 4:30. Stick around. Come say hi to these people.